Round 1. Design. It's not about graphics, it's about design. How well the game looks, how much imagination has been put in, and how well crafted the levels are to go through. All in which is about keeping the game to be straightforward and keep gamers to avoid complaining about lags, glitches, and other design flaws in which it keeps the game from being good. For platformers, however, it's all about imagination. The best designed platformers to me are the most memorable. While every game in the market looks and plays more or less the same, these games have their own identity for what they are. That's why there's a wide selection of them, in which it makes me love the genre as a whole. Now let's look at these platformers and see which of these is my least favorite design. And remember the rules. Each round we're not rewarding who's the winner, we are eliminating who is the loser. Let's start with Mega Man 10. It looks exactly the same as the last one and the ones in the NES days, but what do you expect? Mega Man 10's sole purpose was to bring back all the nostalgia to all the old school fans who grew up with Mega Man. It did a great job with the nostalgia factor, just as it did with Mega Man 9, but what keeps it from being the loser of this round is that the tweaks, new features, and new challenges is what makes it worthwhile. But I was quite surprised by one of the levels that was quite unique and original compared to the others in the series is the baseball stadium level where you have to face Strike Man. Castlevania Harmony of Despair. It's what you expect from the Castlevania games, a large castle with a great spooky haunted house atmosphere filled with traps and classic monsters. But unlike others in the series, Harmony of Despair is so huge that Konami was able to put a multiplayer co-op in the game. This feature itself destroyed the Metroidvania feel that was started from Castlevania Symphony of the Night and went right back to the classic Castlevania gameplay style. I don't mean to complain, but without the Metroidvania feel, it doesn't feel very exciting to explore the castle as it used to be, but rather it's much more fun to destroy monsters with a friend. But for me, Limbo itself was the most original game that came out in 2010. If you see my top 10 cinematic platformers videos, you know how much I love this game. Its design is spot on. All black and white film noir style, and some of the most well thought out puzzles and dangers that thrills me every time. And to top it all down is how brutal the death scenes are, in which cinematic platformers are most known for. Which, by the way, Limbo has done a fantastic job of picking up the old torch that was left out from forgotten classics like Prince of Persia, Out of This World, Heart of Darkness, and the old Oddworld games. But again, be warned that this is some of the most brutal platformers that you can find in the market. Same goes for Super Meat Boy. I just love how Meat Boy slices up into those buzzsaws that just get you the munchies at times. I also love how he leaves traces of blood or sauce on whatever surfaces he touches. Epic Mickey. I waited for this game all year, and it was a blast to play. It's a mixture of Disney's Alice in Wonderland and Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, but nothing like Burton's version of Alice in Wonderland. My favorite thing about this game is when you reach to the mini levels, where you can play levels based on classic Mickey cartoons, which is very nostalgic and at times absolutely fun. And yes, it's a little too short, but there are so many of them between levels that nobody should complain about it. The highlight of Epic Mickey is the interactions with the world, with erasing and reappearing objects with Mickey's paintbrush. With that kind of ability, you could do puzzles and platforming with it, and boy, it doesn't get cleverer or more creative than this. The Sly Collection. All the Sly games from the PS2 era is all into one Blu-ray disc. The thing about the Sly games is that it's all in one concept, mixing platformer with stealth, in which you need to make your environments dark in order for this to work. And still to this day, all three Sly games has never failed to capture the dark film noir feel in the series. And if you're a big fan of the series, the collection would not disappoint because they amped it up with HD graphics, made it playable with the PlayStation Move, and a bunch of unexpected features that I have never expected in this collection. Donkey Kong Country Returns. I've been waiting for this game for a very long time as a Donkey Kong Country fan. Here I say it, I love every minute of this game. But for the designs, even though it's 3D form, it just doesn't really match up with the magic from the previous DKC trilogy. It's not a disappointment because the gameplay is a big improvement, but I think Rare's visioning of the DK games is a little better than what Retro Studios wanted it to be. There are times in this game that it really feels like Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and it's kinda weird to see Diddy riding on DK's back in single player mode rather than following and tag teaming each other like the previous before it. But I'm not going to be too picky with this game because there are so many elements from the previous DK games that are here, from collecting bananas, the KONG letters, riding carts, and so much more. It has all the environments that you might have remembered from the past Donkey Kong Country trilogy, and surprisingly enough, at times it decides to take an artistic effect in which I was not expecting to see. Having that being said, Donkey Kong Country Returns is not a disappointment, and if you're here for nostalgia like I am, it's definitely a must-have. Speaking of nostalgia, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is almost the reimagining of the original Sonic the Hedgehog. To me, this is a true sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, minus the fact that there's only Sonic and Robotnik. But the challenges in this game is really worth a try, but the highlight in Sonic the Hedgehog 4, like in almost every other Sonic game, is definitely the casino level, and I'm glad that Sega did not fuck up this one. And if you're a longtime fan who's been waiting for a quote-unquote good Sonic game, without a doubt you should already played this game already. Speaking of which, Sonic Colors is finally a great Sonic game since Sonic Adventures 2. This time, Sonic and his friends are in a Tron-like world where it's all futuristic and cleverly designed, making it almost feel like space levels from Sonic Adventures 2, with a brand new style of platforming. If you ask me what is the most colorful game of 2010, hands down Sonic Colors is my choice because it really has great lighting effects that is so glamorous to look at. Enough about Sonic, let's talk about his rival Mario on Super Mario Galaxy 2. Here I say it, it's exactly the same as the last Mario Galaxy. The only difference is that you have a new home world with a new style of level selection, the new addition of Yoshi, new power-ups, and newly designed levels. But it's not really a bad thing that Mario Galaxy 2 looked the same as the last because Mario Galaxy had some of the most mesmerizing level design that we've seen in 2007. My only problem is, it's 2010, and I barely see anything improved from the previous game. I know, I should be talking about the designs in this game. I have to say that the power-ups really is an improvement, but I am thankful that not all the levels are exactly the same, even though some of them they did recycle them, like Womp's Fortress, which I find very nostalgic. But the biggest highlight in this game is the levels where they had Yoshi. But it's kind of disappointing that there's not that many Yoshi levels, and you can't take him anywhere else besides the levels where you can find Yoshi. But I sure did enjoy Mario Galaxy 2, and I do recommend it if the first one wasn't enough for you. But to me, what is the best design game for me is Kirby's Epic Yarn. It is so well crafted that it is hard to tell if some of the levels were actually programmed or was recorded by a saw cloth and put into the game. Just watching this game is so charming to the max. Seeing Kirby transforming with the world he's in and all the 2D yarn shapes interacting with each other is clearly creative. This is truly a breath of fresh air for 2D platformers. But with so many platformers this year that is so well designed, which one is the least interesting? Short answer. My least favorite platformer of 2010, Rocket Knight. Why is this so bad, you may ask? Well, if you made an old mascot a comeback and made it nowhere near as good as the original games and only made HD an excuse to even play the game, then you made a bad comeback. I can still go back and pick up the old Rocket Knight Adventures 1 and 2 and Sparkster up any day over this lazy job. Konami just couldn't make an old fan like myself happy with the HD remake. It just looks bland, slow, and boring compared to how exciting and fast-paced the older games in the series were. So the game eliminated out of this competition? Rocket Knight. Heck, even if this game didn't lose in this round, it's bound to lose at some point because I can't see it win in the other rounds. So that's the end of round 1. Round 2. Soundtrack and sound. What makes the feel of playing a platformer to separate all the other game genres is its score. It's all the jingles and such that makes the experience so memorable and exciting, which keeps gamers from getting bored of reaching point A to B and collect stuff. Here we focus on the sound and music because some of the most memorable platformers had some of the best songs in their games. So here are my opinions on what are the best soundtrack of this year of platformers. To start things off, I just want to say that I'm a huge fan of soundtracks that I find nostalgic. One of them that rings a bell is Donkey Kong Country Returns. Even though not too much has changed in the series, it helps a lot to bring back memories playing this game, with the soundtrack coming back to the gaming industry. If you're a big DK fan, as I am, you cannot forget about the tunes that you know throughout all these years. And I'm fully satisfied that they not only brought back the old tunes, but added new tunes that's something to remember. But if you're a big fan of orchestra and video games, then Super Mario Galaxy 2 is where it's at. Just like Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2 made sure that the music fits the atmosphere, with its energetic feel for adventure, which really works well. It's incredible to hear the melody from the old Mario games into rich orchestra. It almost feels like going to Disneyland, and I can say the same for Epic Mickey. Granted, it doesn't sound as groundbreaking as Mario Galaxy 2, but its spooky atmosphere is what most Disney products is most known for, and this game really does got it going throughout the game. Plus, I like the mini games that's incredibly joyful to listen to. But for some original tracks, I sure did like Sonic Colors. Yeah, Reach for the Stars and Speak with Your Heart were a bit annoying, but within the game, the synth score really matches the futuristic world that Sonic is in. But fortunately, Sonic the Hedgehog 4's soundtrack is just astounding. I know most people absolutely hate the soundtrack. To me, it's like an old 16-bit jingles turned into a remix, and I just love listening to it throughout the game. This is almost perfect for a 2.5D game like this one. But if I had to choose what is my favorite soundtrack of the year of platformers, it's a tie between Castlevania Harmony of Despair's epic gothic metal score and Super Meat Boy's boss fight tracks, in which both of them are rocking hard to the max. Just listen. Well, I would love to go on and on about the tracks in this list, but I just got to the best part, and the rest are kind of boring to discuss about. So this is the part where I have to choose the loser. And I know what you're thinking. Limbo, right? Because it doesn't have music? Well, actually no. I don't think Limbo needed a score because it will ruin the cinematic experience throughout the game. I know it's a little cheating, but round 2 is not only about soundtrack, but also sound. And if I could choose what I consider to have the best sound effects / sound editing of the year, it has to be Limbo, because just listening to the buzzsaw and how your character just obliterate into pieces is some of the best quality sound I've ever heard in a video game. And if you dare to put any music, it will ruin it all. But the loser for me, I have to pick Mega Man 10. The Mega Man series is most known for some of the catchiest soundtrack, and 10 just didn't work for me. There wasn't any score here that I considered to be the highlight like Dr. Wily's Castle from Mega Man 2, and yet 9 had a much catchier tunes than 10 did. Listening to Solar Man Stage just gives me a headache. Mega Man 10 was really unimaginative, uncreative, less colorful, and the Robot Masters are lamer, and overall it's pretty bland compared to Mega Man 9. With that being said, I have to put Mega Man 10's disappointing score as the loser of the round and eliminate Mega Man 10 out of the competition. And that's the end of round 2. Round 3, platforming. In order for a game to be even categorized as a platformer, it needs the ability to jump and puts the player in the obstacle of jumping through platform to platform. Platforming is my favorite thing in gaming, period. Having the ability to jump through the platform to platform is my kind of adventure and challenge. The best ones I consider to be are the ones that are creative and how the designers move their platform for us to jump and let gamers apply quick thinking and reaction to overcome these challenges. Now, which of these games handles their platforming perfectly? Or better yet, which one does their platforming pathetically? In Kirby's Epic Yarn, even though it's a little too easy, yet I can't deny that being able to turn Kirby into a string to pass through narrow locations was clever at best, and to see him transform into a string and use them as tools for platforming was nonetheless adorable. Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Even though the controls are kinda hard to getting used to, the homing attacks that was originally in Sonic Adventures came in Sonic the Hedgehog 4, and it's really welcoming, and everything else that you can expect from a traditional Sonic game. Run as fast as you can, and try not to go too fast before you bump into something. Speaking of which, if you only like Sonic Unleashed only for playing Sonic exclusively, then Sonic Colors is definitely your game. It's almost like Sonic Unleashed without the werehog, and that in itself is the best thing, because speed and platforming is what Sonic does best. And I can't say more to any other platformer series than the Sonic series, because it stands out as its own. Another game that stands out on its own is the Sly Trilogy in the Sly Collection. The combination of stealth and platforming was purely original, as it was in 2002 when the series started. What gives the series a genuine feel of stealth when platforming is when Sly and his friends platforming through lasers and other security majig, in which if you fail, you get security on your ass. But if you're looking for fast-paced gaming, look no further than Donkey Kong Country Returns, because this is something that the game did not disappoint. It has all the platforming that the old Donkey Kong Country games had, with the mine carts, swinging trees, and barrel blasting, and even more platforming challenges with moving objects coming after you, and plus finishing some levels in faraway distances in the background. A more intense platformer is Super Meat Boy. Seriously, who didn't break a sweat jumping over buzzsaws that could cause instant deaths? This was intensity at its finest. But if you're not at all interested in mindless action but rather clever platforming, is Epic Mickey, with his ability to appear and reappear objects with his paintbrush, in which is very welcoming to platforming as it really challenges you on what objects you want to create or take away. Another ingenious platformer is Limbo, because this 2D platformer is intense, having almost anything trying to kill you, which gets you rushing, but at the same time tons of puzzles to solve to open paths. Here, you have to use whatever is available to finish the game, even when you have to platform on corpses. I repeat, platform on corpses. That is the sickest thing I have ever seen in platforming, period. But be warned, expect a lot of trial and error in this game, but in my opinion, one of the most intense and fun platforming that came out all year is Super Mario Galaxy 2. It was fun as it was in the first Mario Galaxy. I know I keep bringing up Mario Galaxy 1, but there really isn't anything totally different in Mario Galaxy 2. But with the addition of Yoshi being the ability to hover in mid-air, which makes platforming much easier, plus there are some new features that really tries to avoid looking like its predecessor, in which one of my favorites is when Mario controls all the platformers by switching them to yellow to blue by the power of his spin attack. All of these platform games have really great platforming that really did satisfy me as a veteran of platform games, but there is one that has boring platforming that still is in the competition, and that has to be Castlevania Harmony of Despair. Harmony of Despair just wasn't as fun as the previous Castlevania games like Symphony of the Night, Area of Sorrow, or Dawn of Sorrow. My major problem with this game as a Metroidvania is that the thrill of discovery is gone, and it is placed to a compulsive drive to acquire loots. It only works with multiplayer, but with the co-op feature added in the series, it just doesn't feel like any Castlevania game I want to experience, and yet it's underwhelming. Here's my question for those who are disagreeing. Would you rather play this game or finally a good 3D Castlevania game, Castlevania Lords of Shadow? I don't know about you, but even though it's not a platformer, Lords of Shadow is much more exciting, and I would pick that game up over Harmony of Despair any day. And with that being said, Castlevania Harmony of Despair is eliminated. And that's the end of round 3. So I hope that you like the Platinum Platform Awards thus far. Please stay tuned on part 3 of the Platinum Platform Awards to see the rest of the competition.